So welcome back to Video Games Reloaded, and today I'd like to continue our Let's Talk series on the Sony PlayStation 2. So there were multiple variants of the Sony PlayStation, with them releasing them in multiple colours. This is my silver one. I'll show you a black one momentarily, and this one's with two controllers, and as you can see, this is my boxed black edition one. I don't actually own a slim one at the current time. I used to, but space is a premium in the game room, and so I don't have enough room to cover all multiple consoles, unfortunately. So this is the Sony PlayStation 2 controller, as you can see, with multiple thumbsticks and multiple bumpers at the back. An ingenuity of design. Controller itself is a fantastic device. Unfortunately, again, a small negative is they are prone to breaking very easily, so I tend not to use my official ones. I tend to use unofficial controllers like this one. It's very generic, as you can see. I tend to use one of them, and if they break, I'm not too upset, as I just spent a couple of quid, so that's the best way of going about it. This is a Sony PlayStation memory card, and as you can see, not a lot of storage, but would hold quite a few games even for the 8 MB. And one more thing, which is the Sony HDMI to the PlayStation, which converts the image over. Now, we sell a lot of this in our game store at Last Level Games, and these are fantastic. These do help for a modern TV, and with the support that it is, will upscale a picture to a slightly better picture. You're not going to get a true HDMI out of it, but you're going to get a better picture, and that will then run on a modern TV. And say, we're always getting these in the stock, and they sell incredibly well. Sony PlayStation 2, released in the early 2000s and selling a massive 150 million units, did commercially fantastic, supporting a very early DVD-ROM format, so you could play DVDs and games and support those music CDs. Sony released an absolute juggernaut. Now, the library of the Sony PlayStation was incredibly massive, supporting over 2,000 titles plus, and obviously was backwards compatible, so you could play all your PlayStation 1 library. The great thing is with the Sony PlayStation 2 is it has a feather in its cap, and that is, it's a very cheap device now, and was back in the day. It was a lot cheaper to buy a Sony PlayStation than it was a standard commercial DVD player. The Sony PlayStation was on the market from early 2000s to about 2013. They stopped making units, but at this point they had so many they didn't need to make any more. So let's take a closer look at the Sony PlayStation. As you can see, you've got the open and eject button here, and the power and reset button here. There's vents along the front for breathing. You've got two USB ports on this side, and they were for like a camera, and come in handy very now, because if you've got an HDMI converter, you can run the power supply off that USB port from the front. Two memory card slots and two controller ports. It did support a multi-tap, and you could play multi-tap games. It was a fantastic idea, and obviously this is the DVD-ROM drive, CD-ROM drive, so yeah, you get the best of both worlds when playing games. And around the back, as you can see, it's got a fan, power supply, an on and off switch, and as you can see, there's like a tray here as well for supporting a modem. So that is the Sony PlayStation. Let's take a closer look at some games. So my video game library for the Sony PlayStation is quite large. Way too many games, unfortunately, to cover them all. So as you can see beside me, I've just pulled 150 games out that I wanted to talk about that was a bit interesting. We'll show a bit of video of it. So that unfortunately no one can do a complete library, because that would take a couple of days to go through all the PlayStation games. Plus there was a lot of bad titles, a lot of shovelware on the Sony PlayStation, but a lot of quality ones as well. So in no particular order I shall go through some games, and if I go through them as an entity, like there's one games with several games in that library, I'm then just covering that one game technically, see as one game. So I might just do a video on that one game, but there's several in the library. So in no order: The Simpsons and the Scoos, the like. So Road Rage, The Simpsons the game, Simpsons Skateboarding, and Simpsons Hit and Run, I think it's Hit and Light. And obviously let's look at some gameplay of Simpsons Hit and Run.
Let's roll!
Not very good at this.
I have no insurance!
Whee!
Woohoo! All right!
Got you now. Gimme, gimme, gimme.
Whee!
Calibart Man! I didn't do it.
So the Sony PlayStation had a lot of mascots when it was launched, and that did carry on to the PlayStation 2. So obviously when PlayStation 1 was launched, you had Spyro the Dragon. So Spyro the Dragon, Enter the Dragon. Spyro, A Hero's Tale. Spyro, New Beginnings. Spyro, Eternal Night. And last but not least, Spyro, Dawn of the Dragon. And let's take a look at some gameplay. Also on the Sony PlayStation was Time Splitters, really fun game. Time Splitters 2 and Time Splitters Future Perfect. So making its way across to the Sony PlayStation from the original Tekken games, you had Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Tekken Tag. Some really good gameplay there. Also wannabe Sony mascots were on the Sony PlayStation 2 were Sly Cooper, Sly Cooper 2, A Band of Thieves, Sly Cooper, Honor Amongst Thieves, and that's really solid title. So the Sony PlayStation put out some triple packs, and I've got a few, which is Prince of Persia and Rayman. Also, like, they did a Tomb Raider edition as well, and very good games. So also on Sony PlayStation, brought over from the Dreamcast was Res. This is a fantastic game. It doesn't matter whether you play it on Dreamcast or the PlayStation. It runs slightly better on, in my opinion, on the Dreamcast, but this is a fantastic music synergy game, and it's so much cheaper on here compared to the DC. It's a real solid title. Some wrestling for you. This one gets sort of a bad rub because it's content, but Rumble Roses. And this is really a great technical wrestling game. Yes, it's got naked women on there to a certain degree in very little clothing, but you know, I enjoy it because it's just a great wrestling title. And I'm not into my wrestling brawlers, but this is a really solid one. There's a game that's got a little bit of controversy, and that's Seven Sin. And pretty much the game evolves with a protagonist where the idea is you work in a laundry shop and you have to sort of molest the girls. Again, I'm not so sure if you get away with that today, but yeah, it's a very odd title. You have to be as sleazy as possible to do well on the game, which gets you caused a slap in the face more times than one. So yeah, that's very controversial, but yeah, great fun. So a little bit of heavy hitter now. Silent Hill 3, a game that is constantly going up in value, and quite rightly so, is because it's a great series. The Silent Hill 2 is solid, and yeah, they're really fun games, and the first one still hasn't had a proper decent remake yet, so fantastic title. And again, we'll take a little look at that one. So making its way across from the Sony PlayStation, Destruction Derby Arena and Drive Destruction Derby. Two great solid titles, lots of mayhem, really fun games, and I like these and the Flat Out series. I think they're fantastic, which has like evolved into the sort of new series which is on PS4. It's a lot of fun. So let's take a look at some racing titles that don't get mentioned too often for some strange reason. And the first one is Driving Emotion Type S, and a game you hardly ever see about, Infusia. And these games have like, they do have a following, but no one ever talks about them because they're made by Squaresoft and Konami and not by Polyphonic Digital, who do all the Gran Turismo series or all the Need for Speed, let's say. But these are really entertaining games, a lot of fun. So talking of Need for Speed, let's take a look at some games. Need for Speed Carbon, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Need for Speed Underground 2 and Underground 1, Need for Speed Undercover, and Need for Speed Pro Street. Not so keen on Pro Street, but great Need for Speed games for sure. Wanted played to death, including Most Wanted, which is a cracking title on other formats. Must be played because it's just a lot of fun. Now for some really good games. Ratchet and Clank, Ratchet and Clank Lock and Loaded, Ratchet and Clank 3, Ratchet and Clank Gladiators, Ratchet and Clank Size Matters, and the impossible one to find out there, Ratchet and Clank Secret Agent. So we definitely have to take a look at these games because they're fantastic. So Lara Croft was well represented on the PlayStation 2 with Tomb Raider, the worst of the bunch. Not a particularly good game, unfortunately. The Darkness They're a better group, but this is a terrible, terrible game. Tomb Raider Legends, game I really like playing. Tomb Raider Anniversary, so that's like the original game, and the collector's edition of Tomb Raider Anniversary. So if you like Tomb Raider, it's a must way to go. It would have been nice to see others ported across, but it just came out at such an awkward time. Racing, which is made by Namco and follows the kind of Ridge Racer series, but more emphasis on evolve game rather than sliding physics around corners. It's more simulated, where you do like a complete race season. Also by Sega, Outrun Coast to Coast. Not expensive as people would think it would be on PlayStation 2. Certainly on the original Xbox it is, but it had more content. And you do have to watch out when you are looking for it that you got an official one with the serial number on, because without that it's not a true version of it. It's still the same game, but yeah, it's that serial number links it to that box, and everyone had one. So on to now more mascots for Sony PlayStation. Jak and Daxter, Jak and Daxter 2, Jak and Daxter 3, and Jak and Daxter X. I am missing one, obviously. Again, great solid games by Naughty Dog. So let's look at some horror games in the form of Resident Evil. Resident Evil Dead Aim, Resident Evil Outbreak Files, Resident Evil Outbreak Files 2, Resident Evil 4, and the black sheep of the family, Resident Evil X, which is Code Veronica. Just came on Dreamcast, as known as Code Veronica. Really solid game. Changed up a lot here in the game, and give you a little bit more context to the story, which was a good thing. But yeah, I think I'm missing one Survivor game. But yeah, really solid. And again, we'll take a look at one of those games. So for the Sony PlayStation, got the mascot when it was launched of Crash Bandicoot, and he's well represented going across to the PS2 with games like Crash Tag Team, Crash Nitro Kart, Crash of the Titans, Crash Mind Over Mutant, Crash The Wrath of Cortex, and Crash Twin Insanity. So let's have a look at some Crash Mind Over Mutant footage, because again, it's a lot of fun and the game is a lot of fun. So one of my favourite series now is God of War, and I've collected just about every God of War game I can find. But it started life on PS2, God of War, and God of War 2. Absolutely fantastic games, and definitely we need to look at some gameplay of that.
The gods of Olympus have abandoned me. Now there is no hope.
And Kratos cast himself from the highest mountain in all of Greece. After 10 years of suffering, 10 years of endless nightmares, it would finally come to an end. Death would be his escape from madness. But it had not always been this way. Kratos had once been a champion of the gods.
Beast! I will send you back to the depths of Hades!
So let's look at some games that not a lot of people talk about, and that's like games that are multiple on one disc, i.e. volumes of collections of games. So we'll start out with Capcom Collection Volume 1 and Capcom Collection Volume 2. And then you have Midway's Treasures 1, Midway's Treasures 2, and Midway Treasures 3. And on 3, got some of my favourite titles like Hydro Thunder and San Francisco Rush 2049. But also Taito jumped on board as well and have released their Legends collections, things like Bubble Bubble, Rainbow Island, Operation Wolf, I believe they did, and Space Invaders, and then Legend 2, which has got things like Darius, Super Space Invaders, and lots more really solid titles. I would have thought because they did make fighting games there'd be more of them on there, but there's a few represented and they're really solid. Let's just put them there. The pile that's got the other high beside me. Gradius 3 and 4. really good shoot 'em up. A lot of fun. Yeah, I think there's one more of these out there. I think part 5, if I'm not mistaken, but I've never come across that, unfortunately. So let's talk about games that everyone remembers and have bought and are ridiculously cheap currently. So you've got Gran Turismo 3, Gran Turismo 4, Gran Turismo Concept, and Gran Turismo Prologue. Really, 4 being the best title out of there. I've probably played more of part 3, but 4 being the better game running at high resolution. I did put a video up of its resolution. I got strikes straight away because of the music, so you have to be very careful when you upload. Now for a series of games that I heavily collect. I enjoy them on just about every format they're going, whether it be on Xbox or whether it be on PS4. Really solid titles. So Devil May Cry, Devil May Cry 2, Devil May Cry 3, and Devil May Cry Special Edition Part 3. Lots of extra content, bonus disc, absolutely solid games. So let's take a look at some gameplay.
Let's rock, baby.
Devil May Cry.
You're the man who lost a mother and a brother to evil 20 years ago. The son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, Mr. Dante.
Well, the way I figure it, in this business a lot of your kind comes around. And if I kill each one that comes, eventually I should hit the jackpot sooner or later.
Trish!
Again I must face a Sparta. Strange fate, isn't it?
Strange and ironic that it will end the same way.
So a game that was actually launched on Dreamcast was Headhunter, and then Sony put a port across, and we did actually get Headhunter Part 2, The Redemption. Again, both solid games, a lot of fun. Can highly recommend getting them, and they're so super cheap. So getting through them now, let's look at some Grand Theft Auto games that were actually released, and we'll start off with the bigger box set of Grand Theft Auto, and that's a double pack. It's a little bit harder to find, but great solid. And follow that up by Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories, and GTA San Andreas. Obviously at this point 5 wasn't everywhere. It's a little bit too early for that. It died out a few years before 5 came out. But Rockstar makes some fantastic games, as you know, with things like Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Revolver and a few others, which came before this. Started all out on the original GTA games and GTA London. But yeah, really solid titles and a must collect because they are truly a lot packed into one game. Some more racing now, and we'll start off with Ford Racing, Ford Racing 2, Ford Racing 3, and Ford Mustang. My favourite out of that lot is Ford Racing 3, and again, let's take a look at some video of it. So I thought, which way do I go about this? Do I do like a lot of Sega stuff and cover, which I could easily have done, and representing the truck simulator, and I've got loads of truck racing games. But I thought the most fun out of these were Big Mother Trucker series. They were a lot of fun, and as you can see, Big Mother Truckers 2. You could struggle to complete the games because they weren't really meant to be completed, not in the traditional way you thought they were, but yeah, they're always cheated at the end. You could never earn enough money to be the favourite son to get the trucking business, which was the idea of the game. But yes, I said maybe if we ever look at a volume 2 of my collection, I could put in an 18-wheeler as well. But yes, a lot of fun. So, Castlevania, an absolutely exceptional game, fantastic. I don't have the other one, but yeah, this is a fantastic game. What can I say? There's some staple stuff by Konami, and this is one of them. They have some really good ideas, and when they put out games, it would have been nice to see a few more of their titles make it to the modern world, represented on the PS4, but or PS5, but that's never going to happen, unfortunately. Former of themselves. So yeah, again, a great series just wasted, unfortunately.
In an era long past, as monarchies weaken, local feudal lords grew in power. The first knights simply protected their lords' domains. However, with the reforms of the late 11th century, knights became protectors of the peace. They valued courage and honor, fighting heretics and heathens in God's name. In this age, one company of knights was said to be invincible due to two men, Leon Belmont, a courageous man who feared nothing and whose combat abilities were second to none, and Matthias Kronqvist, a genius tactician whose learning made him an exception in a largely illiterate society. They trusted each other completely, and they were bound by an old friendship. However, sorrow awaited Matthias upon his return from a victorious campaign. It was news of the sudden death of his beloved wife, Elisabetta. Matthias's grief was profound, and he became bedridden. A year has passed since then. Thanks to Leon's efforts, their company remains proudly undefeated. However, a mysterious army of monsters suddenly appears in Leon's domain. The Crusades are raging in the east, and since the Church is focusing on fighting heathens rather than monsters, it has forbidden unauthorized battles. Leon wants permission to sortie, but the Church has no intention of granting it. One night, Matthias struggles from his sickbed and tells Leon that the appearance of the monsters is tied to a vampire who has a castle in the forest called Eternal Night, and that Leon's betrothed, Sarah, has been kidnapped and brought to that castle. Leon realizes that he must renounce his title to rescue his beloved. The forest is swollen with darkness, as if it would rob away everything, and only moonlight provides a ray of hope. A great legend is about to begin.
Some fighting titles now, because I realised I hadn't represented it well. Bloody Roar 3, really good. I've got Bloody Roar 1 and 2 on the Sony PlayStation 1, and again, just continuing on looking for the series because it was a lot of fun. Here's an absolute banger of a title, Auto Malista. A game I've put up 3 or 4 times on video for. It's a really solid title by Capcom. Again, just great fun. A little bit difficult, but great fun. So let's take a look at another racing series. Burnout. Burnout Point of Impact. Great game, this one, because of the crash and explode physics on this game. Absolutely phenomenal. Had so much fun just playing, not through the main game, but through the explosions. A lot of fun indeed. Burnout Takedown. Burnout Dominator. And Burnout Revenge, what everyone remembers, because it took the series in a new direction. Still had the explosion crash physics in the game. Still a lot of fun, but a great series. They did try to revive it on the PS4, but it was called, I think, Dangerous Driving, and it was just terrible. IQ. which is a fantastic, beautifully drawn game. Even the artwork on the front is fantastic. Where you're trying to save a girl from who's imprisoned in the castle. It's just a very odd game, but yeah, it's a lot of soul thinking and puzzle solving. Not a lot of dialogue in the game, but that shows you don't always need it. So yeah, very, very solid title indeed. Cheap as well. Half-Life. I think this is the only version that you can play as a cooperative all the way through the game to get through it. And yeah, solid game. Lots of fun to play through. And finally, a game that no one talks about, and again it's just random and I've got tons more sitting on myself, is Dark Watch. An absolute fantastic title where you're an outlaw of the dead. I think got released very similar to it in gameplay on PS4 just recently, called Evil West, but without the soul that this game has. It's yeah, it's just a great game by Ubisoft, and keep an eye out for it because it's a solid title if you're collecting. A lot of fun.
Evil, as old as time, spreads like a plague, corrupting the hearts of men. For millennia, there have been those who have stood against it, a secret organization to protect mankind. They are the front line in an unholy war. They are the Dark Watch.
So I always say about Quantic Dreams are a fantastic company for actually producing games. And if we go back to one of the very early titles, which is Fahrenheit, put out by Atari. Again, absolutely cracking title, where you feel yourself going mad and did you commit a murder or didn't you commit a murder. A really, again, solid title. Again, makes you think. a shinobi game now, The Way of the Ninja, Shinobi Din. And again, a cracking title, very solid play, getting up there in value as well. And one game, again, great horror, Forbidden Siren, fantastic game, again, going mad in the mind, a great horror series. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It will help the channel grow, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you and bye bye.